What happens as AI and APIs converge? From around the globe, we come together to explore this question. We are builders, leaders, and visionaries. We're the trailblazers creating digital experiences that transform businesses. And we're the architects of the innovations that will shape the world for years to come. Together, we'll explore the cutting edge of smarter API management, unleashing AI adoption, and balancing innovation and control. Welcome to API Summit 2024.
Here we go. Welcome to API Summit. This is the most important API Summit ever. We are at an inflection point of something new and huge coming on us. 6 years ago, I went on stage at the inaugural Kong Summit in 2018, and I announced that API management is dead. Of course, what it meant is that it was evolving. It made a lot of chatter, a lot of news, but it was true. It did materialize. That vision that we needed a different way to manage APIs, that we had to evolve our way of thinking, eventually manifested first with the advent of cloud native. We built the most popular cloud native technology for APIs. We started with Kong Gateway. We wanted to detach from the legacy, old school, centralized technologies. We wanted to provide to our API developers the fastest API technology in the world. We also wanted to have a great developer experience. We wanted to be decentralized. So as workloads move to the cloud, we can have a single way to manage it, still reliable and distributed across our technology stack. We made that bet, and with our customer support, we built that technology to be the #1 cloud-native API platform used. That's what it meant when API management was dead. After that, we saw new protocols coming, new patterns. It was the advent of gRPC, GraphQL. We went from north-south to east-west. Kubernetes went mainstream. And so we needed new ways of bringing all of this together. And we built Connect. That was the first unified API platform. We brought under a single control plane, a single pane of glass from observability to governance, different runtimes from the API gateway to the ingress controller to the service mesh to fully managed cloud gateways. That was the bet that the world needed, a single way, a simple way, the best DX to manage all different use cases, protocols, and technologies in the same way. And now, it's something even bigger than what we spoke before. We actually see this coming. We knew that AI would have brought a huge amount of new endpoints, programmable endpoints in the world. It would have brought a huge amount of APIs. And this is why, once again, is evolving into the need of an intelligent API platform. Intelligence meaning that it will bring you smarter ways to manage your APIs, but also it will enable you to become that AI, Gen AI companies you want to be. Don't believe me? The NVIDIA CEO, a few months ago, announced that essentially all code in the world will be API calls to large language models, with those large language models in turn calling other LLMs. Think about that. All code will essentially be API calls. How big is this? I spent more than half of my life betting on APIs. And this is the time where finally all of that converge into the AI revolutions. And APIs are at the center of it. Let me walk you through how we got here and why I think this is the path forward. If we go back half a century ago, there were mainframes. And there were pretty much no application programming interface as a common way of programming. Maybe we saw the first real mainstream APIs with Windows, especially Windows 95, going mainstream, folks start to build all sort of applications into Windows. That was one API, one gigantic API that the world started to use and tap into it to build on the Windows platform. There were maybe a few others, but it was just a handful back then. Then Internet came out, and we had the programmable web era, where every service we were bringing online eventually start to build public APIs. And that, I think, was the first inflection point where we started to go into the thousands of APIs. But it was just the foundational infrastructure that prepared us to the other platform shift, which was the mobile era, followed by the cloud era to support all this explosion of mobile device. So mobile obviously created proliferations of billions of devices connected to the internet with billions of applications on it. But the weather app on our phone, the weather's not on the phone, it's an API. And so the massive proliferation of API infrastructure needed to support this new way of consuming the internet created the cloud era, the elastic computing, serverless, containers technology. They all came about at the same time to make sure that we could support these massive needs of consuming more and more software wherever we are. Also, the cloud era, it's about moving workload to the cloud. And every time a workload from legacy to the cloud gets moved to the cloud, it creates more APIs. A new workload native into the cloud is just way more endpoints. That created technology like serverless, where it's just a proliferation of more and more APIs in the world. And now, I think what we've seen, and these trends are not going anywhere, by the way, but I think what's happening now, it's even a faster acceleration than what we ever seen before. It's the AI era. And I think the click here is not just the impact that it's having, but how fast it's growing. In the last year, from 23 to 24, there is a McKinsey study that shows how Gen AI, which is a subset of the whole AI, got adopted from 33% to 65%, basically doubling adoption in the organizations. This kind of speed and acceleration of adoption in technology never happened before. It usually takes a decade to adopt it. But this time, it's happening faster than ever. That's why we believe this spike of API creations is like nothing we've seen before. So we saw all the platform shift, and it sounds like every platform shift that we create ended up by side products to create more APIs as a way to solve that problem and support that platform shift. If we look back, the way we have consumed internet in the last 20 years as humans, it was all through UI. We look at our website, we scroll, we browse it, we have our mouse, we move to our tablets, to our phones, and we have application with clicks. But it's mainly UI-driven consumption. And we're at the beginning of a massive interface shift, powered by the platform shift, where actually APIs is going to be the primary way the world is going to consume software. We're moving from a human-based services that needed UI to functions to machine-based services. And machines, they talk through APIs. They don't talk through UI. So we're just at the beginning of it. And so we're seeing today a proliferation of LLM. And it's not just the usual suspect like OpenAI. Yes, it's true, there's going to be maybe one or two big brothers going to answer kind of common questions. But the world is moving with every business having internal large language model, small language models, hosted language models, custom ones. And so we're moving this world where there are going to be probably hundreds or thousands of LLM inside each businesses, like it happens in microservices where we start to have thousands of mini services. But the beauty of those LLMs, going back to the genset code prediction, is that how do they talk at the end of the day? That's the eureka moment where I woke up one day and say, hey, actually, the input and output of an LLM is just more APIs. Because how those LLM talks is not through the UI, but it's through the APIs. And how fast Gen AI is growing, it tells you how fast the API calls in the world are growing with it. That's right. At the end of the day, hundreds and thousands larger language models, they communicate through APIs. That's the world that we're living in today and the growth that we're expecting tomorrow. In this era, as API management is evolving, once again, there is massive needs for an intelligent API platforms. And it means mainly two things. Number one, it's AI infused. Of course, we have to bring smartness into the API platforms. And those are just few examples of what an AI-infused API platform will do for you in the near future. Of course, it will create auto docs for having always up-to-date API documentation. It will find if APIs are out of compliance, giving you self-governance. But also, it will be able to predict, based on the metadata of historical usage, what the future looks like. For example, it's an e-commerce platform, and based on the data of Black Friday a year ago, we can tell you what is the expected API usage this year, and maybe you will have to provision your gateway, your API infrastructure better as there is new spike, or predicting error rates. Those are all data that we already have today in Connect and can bring you in the future those kind of predictions. Last but not least is about also smart suggestion. Based on the use case that we can see, we can automatically tell you which plugins, which policy you should add to your APIs. Maybe you have this high traffic use case where a rate limiting is required. And we can show you there if you want to adopt it. And with a few clicks, you will be able to take the functionality of the features that you need when you need it. That's AI-infused intelligence API platform. But of course, we're going to do all this stuff. But the big new Eureka moment is that actually an API platform is the enabler to AI. In a way, you can't do AI without APIs. Or better, to do AI, you actually need to do the non-AI stuff first. Let me walk you through this API journey to Gen AI. So we talk about API calls being the future. Well, at first, we have to make sure we manage that API calls. We manage that traffic that comes through large language modules, through clients, through microservices. We make sure we have the best API runtimes. No matter it's north, south, east, west, no matter what protocol is, we are able to manage that traffic. If we're able to manage all the traffic, which includes a growing number of LLM traffic, then we can automatically map out an API catalog and become a system of record. Why that's important for AI? It's important because AI, where do they go today to find their building blocks to solve their task? There isn't a central universal API catalog. But because we managed all the API traffic, we can provide a system of records of APIs, which is the building blocks where AI can build and get their tasks done and build Gen AI apps much, much faster. You can only do that, and you can only keep it up to date if you manage all the API traffic first. And third, if you have all these building blocks of supply, you can take a piece of it and give it to the world to use and build an API store. Think about an app store, but for APIs. That will allow every company in the world to use your APIs building blocks you want to use, charging for them, transact, and have this universal place where AI can come and exchange value through a central nexus of the API economy. Think about that. That API store is not just for humans. It will be also for machine to attach to it and programmatically consume and publish API services that they need to get their AI workflow done. This is what an API platform of this new era is supposed to do, to enable you to your journey to Gen AI. This is why you need not just an API platform, but you need the API platform for AI. And the good news is that Connect is that API platform for AI, And with the help of our customer and partners, we're building through these visions already. Let me show you how. At first, we built the best API runtimes in the world, whether it's gateway for API management traffic, ingress controller for Kubernetes workloads, mesh for east-west traffics. We also made the gateway fully self-managed, so you can deploy cloud gateways anywhere in the world with a click on a button on your cloud of choice. We're going to hear a lot about later in our talks. But we brought all of those things together under one unified control plane. In February, we announced the AI Gateway. Kong AI Gateway was the first proxy that manages LLM traffic and brings all that governance, observability, and security for specific LLM traffic. Is your gateway to AI. That's how we're really enabling a lot of our customers to their journey of AI. It supports all sorts of LLM and vector DBs, and at runtime, in the traffic path, it can immediately apply a lot of valuable policy to make your journey to API safe, faster, and secure. We believe that, like it happens in microservices, governance, security, and observability, it's built at the traffic layer, not in the backends. In the backends, you will have hundreds or thousands of LLMs. You don't want to repeat the same code for common logic tasks. That will happen at the traffic layer also because it's really the main door where all the LLM traffics will go, and you have this end-to-end visibility. This is huge because today, all those LLMs are practically unmanaged like microservices 5 years ago. That's why we built the Gateway to the AI. The Gateway to the AI is only 5 months old, but it's the fastest growing product we ever launched in terms of adoptions. In 5 months, it had 12,000 activated AI gateways. This is massive growth, but I'm not super surprised if we look at the Gen AI adoption, if we look at the NVIDIA CEO quote. The future is already here. It's ready today, and those data speaks for themselves. This is just one example of what tooling we're building, what infrastructure we're building to make sure you have your journey to the AI as fast and secure and safe. And we're going to see later today a lot of new exciting announcement of the new version of our AI Gateway, which will bring even more power to your LLM use case. Now, we brought all these runtimes together into the API platform for AI. And on top of it, we can build this end-to-end observability and governance into one place, because we can proxy and manage all the API traffic from north-south to east-west. By doing that, we're de facto creating that API catalog, that universal API inventory of building blocks that allows your engineers, your partners, large language module to come in and pick their building blocks to build the Gen AI apps much, much faster. And there is not such a thing today in the world. There is no API system of record. There is no universal API graph. And the reason is because it's very hard to do it. You can have catalog and listing and directories, but a minute later, they're not up to date and they lose their relevance. But because we brought with our customer the best API infrastructure at runtime, then we can keep those catalog always mapping up-to-date API information with active running APIs automatically. By keeping that up-to-date system of record, it's de facto a real system of records. That's the second point of having an API platform for AI that enables you into this journey. And third, we built this programmable. Of course, it's an API. And so there is developer portal, API billing, all these extensions applications that are built on top that allows you to expand your API needs, whether it's a CDN, whether you have to monetize it. As we are in the proxy path, you can have all sort of use case. Maybe it's encrypting API keys. And this is all about producing, in a way, APIs. But what's the point of producing and building APIs if there is no consumptions? So in parallel, we have Insomnia, which is one of the most popular API consumption platform to help you consume and test APIs. Later, we're going to have a lot of new announcement of Insomnia, but obviously, AI needs to be consumed. APIs of LLMs needs to be consumed. And so that will bring you a good end-to-end workflow from building and producing APIs to consuming APIs for AI. And the third leg of the journey is the API store. Because yes, at the end, we all need more distributions. And having that side options to build APIs that then we can distribute to millions of developers, and those millions of developers can come and consume thousands of APIs with the same API key, the same building credential. It's a dream. But also machines can go into the API store and one day consume and transact the APIs they need, the service they need to get stuff done. This is the API platform for AI, going from running and managing all the APIs to growing up into a unified control planes, to then building a programmable platforms, to then have a big consumptions sidecar with Insomnia, and then ultimate the API store where you have a network effect, the de facto nexus of an API economy. That's to say that historically, APIs obviously has been there maybe from Windows 95, but the era of APIs that is today is really the AI era, which in a way, everything around us, it's going to talk, consume, perceive things, get stuff done through APIs. No matter it's your next-gen robotics, it's the fridge, it's the car, it's implants in our bodies, the way that talks is through APIs. So imagine a world where what it would happen to AI if there were no APIs. And so like we say in Kong, there's no AI without APIs. Thank you.